Hello and welcome back to the second Tracker live stream of today, where today or now I'm going to be placing volcanoes in Kerbal. If you happened to watch the last stream I did, you may have noticed how short that stream was, and that was due to a genuine mistake while driving the monorail train. The stream was titled Monolith Express, but if it derails, the stream ends, and I kind of intended that to mean like a physics bug derailing the train, but I derailed the train because I forgot about a speed limit. And because it was so short, I still feel ready to stream, and I feel like I want to do it still. So instead, I will be placing some volcanoes in Kerbal. Now, I won't be placing more of these ones on the stream, which are based on real volcanoes at real scale. I'm going to be doing some which are supposed to be part of Kerbin. Now, they're still going to be based on real volcanoes for their height map, but I'm going to try and blend them in a bit better than these ones, which have got massive squares around them. So you can see over here is an example of some of these volcanoes, which are supposed to be part of Kerbin. So I've made a map which I'm going to look at now, and the map should show me where I need to place the volcanoes. So this bit of land I'm currently at, looking at my Kerbal Plate Tectonics map, there should be volcanoes all the way along this strip of land here. So I guess it's time to start placing volcanoes. Right, what do I name them? I think I'm just gonna name them Kerbin Volcano 1, 2, and 3 rather than just using real volcano names that begin with K, because I've kind of run out of those now, because I've placed a lot of them. So here's a map decal. Kerbin, if I can spell, Volcano 1. I hope I'm not overriding anything here. Let me just check. Yes, I might be overriding things. Let me do it from where I left off then. Right, let's lower the map decal down to the ground. It looks like it's underwater, but it's still 79 meters above sea level. It's always a bit of a hard decision to decide what volcano to place, as I've got a lot of volcanoes. Shall we do the Canlaon volcano, I think? Now, as these are supposed to be part of Kerbin, I am going to try and blend them in a bit more than those ones over there. Let's have a look at that then. So over here. Here's the volcano. It's a bit too steep though. Looking at that, like far too steep. I need to make that a bit less steep than that. So I'm going to lower the height map deformity a little bit. That's a lot better looking. Let's have a quick look. It's a lot better looking now. And it looks fairly well blended in as well. Here's the crater. And you can see it's kind of got a line of craters in a trend. A trending line of craters. Right, let's place another volcano. Kerbin Volcano 023. I think occasionally we should go with a more symmetrical volcano. That's the thing, there's so many volcanoes that I have added to Kerbal that it really is hard to choose. How about the Agua volcano? I can't find it though. There it is. The Agua volcano. Let's set the smooth height to 0.3. Set that to maybe 1,800 and the radius to maybe 7,600. Just to position a bit. Now, I was thinking of doing streams before, like earlier this year, placing volcanoes, but as you may or may not know, earlier this year I had a really bad issue with Kerbal where it kept crashing when I was placing these volcanoes. I have since fixed that issue, so there should be no more problems with crashing when placing these volcanoes. It's not really blending in as well as the last volcano. I'm seeing a bit of a corner there on the height map. Yeah, this really isn't blending in as well, this one. Might have to switch it out with another height map. This one doesn't want to blend in nicely. Let's go with another similar looking volcano. What I don't like is when you use the scroll wheel to scroll up and down on this menu, it zooms you in and out. I'm thinking maybe the Mayon volcano. There it is. Let's try it with the Mayon volcano height map. You can see it's changed it a lot, made it a bit too steep. Yes, I am also back live streaming. And it's just because I felt like I wanted to keep going, but I couldn't keep going with the train stream because of my rules that I set myself on that stream. Right, that's starting to blend in a bit better now. I think we could do with rotating the height map a little bit. Just trying to make this volcano blend in better. Let's make it a little bit steeper. I think that one's good now. Let's take a closer look at the volcano. Make sure there's no lines in the terrain or anything. Here's the volcano. It's not too steep. Let's go on to place a third volcano. Let's place a third volcano. Right, what volcano shall I go with here then? This is always so hard to decide on which volcano. It's almost like I should scroll through like that and just randomly click. Though an island wouldn't really go very well on the terrain. Yeah, we might be able to do Misty There's a lot of mountains around Misty, which might make it difficult to blend in. So we'll see. Let's adjust the height map accordingly. Yeah, that hasn't blended in very well, has it? You don't want too much smoothing, otherwise it cuts into the sides of the volcano. You can really see the effect of the mountains that are around the volcano. That's looking a bit better, but I still need to smooth out some of these lines which are not blending in very well. Let me move on the chair so it doesn't keep creaking like that. Let's lower the height map down a bit, that might help with smoothing it out a bit. Not too keen on the fact that it's removed some of the terrain around it. That one's... I've made it quite big, haven't I, this volcano? Let's put in more smoothing on the height map. Just gonna move it sideways to see if this is definitely what's causing the lakes. If I move it out into the ocean, are the lakes still there? No. So it looks like I'm going to need more smoothing on the edges. Raised it up really high now. Let's fix this a bit. Needs to lower the height map a little bit more. It's looking a bit better, but there's still some lakes and some areas which are not particularly smoothed out. Sometimes it is really hard to blend these in with the terrain. Let's lower the height a little bit, that's starting to get a bit steep. I think that's the best I can do with that one. Let's take a closer look at the volcano. There's a bit of a tiny little bit of terrain stepping visible, but that doesn't really matter that much. It's not that easy to notice. Let's place a plane on top of the volcano. The reason why I put it on top is because of the fact that you're less likely to accidentally destroy it when placing another volcano. Still feels a bit big compared with the other ones I placed, this one. Let's place another one. We need to go all the way down this strip of land here, placing them. There we go. This is Kerbin Volcano. And I'm just going to put 25 because I can't think of any more names for these. Now I know in real life you tend to get more of a mixture of volcanoes, like you may get some volcanic fields, some stratovolcanoes, some shield volcanoes, and various other things, and like complex volcanoes, but I find when people look at those that you're less likely to think that that's a volcano, some of those. So I like to lean towards doing more stratovolcanoes, because when people see those, they immediately think that that's a volcano. So let's think of the fourth volcano to add today. It's a very hard decision with all of these. Now another thing is I can't really do height maps that have two volcanoes like this side by side, because when I apply the smoothing, it's going to apply the smoothing more on one side of the volcanoes than the other sides, which is the middle, and that's going to end up making the volcanoes look like they're tilted. So you can't really do ones with two volcanoes side by side very easily unless you reduce the smoothing. That chair's creaking again. I'm very indecisive. Let's try the Basman volcano, which is a volcano in Iran. Now this one requires a slightly bigger height map. I'm going to apply a bit more smoothing on this one. Let's increase the height of it a bit and see what we get. That looks fairly good. Maybe I make it a bit steeper. I think that looks good. Let's go and take a closer look at this volcano. And there's a hole in the top of it. In fact, there's a bit of an error here that needs to be fixed. Yeah, I can't be doing with that. Let's fix that volcano. Now to select it, there's a bug in Kerbal Construct that if you click on the same map decal you were just working on, it doesn't select it, so you have to click on the last one and then back to this one again. Right, to fix the hole in the top, we just move it slightly. And to fix the other problem I had, I lower the smoothing a little bit. And hopefully when I go back to it, the problem should be fixed. I think I did briefly see a bit of a, yeah, there's a bit of a seam visible on the terrain here. I'm not sure if that's part of the height map. Yeah, I can sort of see the seam on the terrain, so I might have to add more smoothing or raise the height map higher. And as you can see, my fix worked. The top of the volcano is fixed, no more hole in the top, and no more weird cliff going across it. So I'm just going to adjust it a bit so that there's less of a seam visible. I can also see the corner of the height map sticking out here. And I want to smooth out the seams on these so that it's hard to tell that these are added on. So I'm going to add smoothing and raise the volcano a bit higher up. And hope that the problems I had before do not come back. I'm also going to rotate it so the corner of the height map isn't sticking out so much. We're getting these weird cliffs again. Or if I raise the smoothing higher, and we're getting even more weird cliffs. Let's lower the smoothing. See, I'm doing things that Kerbal Constructs probably was never designed to do here. So I'm kind of pushing the mod to its limits. Because map decals were originally designed to smooth terrain out so that you can place your runway on the terrain without like having the terrain go through it or having the runway be floating. They were never designed for you to import volcano height maps and then use those to place volcanoes in the game. I think that blends in quite nicely. Let's take a closer look again. There is a bit of a straight edge there, but that doesn't really matter. You get some straight beaches in real life. Like, if you look at the Deception Island volcano, that's got a very straight edge to it. On one edge of it. The eastern edge of the Deception Island volcano is very straight. Now that is due to there being, I believe, a fault there. Right, that blends in quite nicely, I think. I think it's time to start working on another volcano. You can see I've already kind of destroyed this plane previously working on volcanoes because I don't ever intend to fly it. I just use Vessel Mover to move it around. I had an incident that blew up the engine on it and the tail. Right, let's place in another volcano. Yeah, you can really see where the height map has filled in the lakes there. Kerbin Volcano 26. Kerbin Volcano 26, this one will be. No, we're not doing the same one again. Just gonna... No, Bioko's an island. Let's do the Cotopaxi volcano for this height map. Increase the width, increase the height. Apply and save. We need to make it a bit taller than that. This one isn't blending very nicely, is it? This one's being a bit stubborn. I can still see some seams on the terrain. Yeah, I can really see that corner there, on that sand there. The objective with these is to smooth out the seams so much that you cannot tell that I placed these. Maybe that you can't really tell. Can't really tell that there are seams there. Let's have a look. I might have made that a bit big actually. I might have made this too big. Oh no, look at that seam. That seam is so visible. We don't like to see that seam there. You can see the seams going all the way round. And also the volcano is kind of like a pyramid in shape. It's not round. And that's due to the smoothing cutting into the volcano. There's two ways of fixing that, and that's either by increasing the smoothing or just using a different volcano. Or sometimes lowering the volcano also fixes it as well. So let's just try and fix it by increasing the smoothing and lowering it down. This will make it steeper. And that's just made things a bit worse. So let's undo that. I can still see the seams. Right, let's change to a different volcano. Which volcano shall I switch to? Ineri? I'm just gonna look on Google Maps to see what that one looks like. If I don't misspell it and send myself to some random place. Here it is. Yeah, I can do that volcano. I highly doubt I'm pronouncing these volcanoes correctly. Iniri, an Indonesian volcano. One of Indonesia's many volcanoes, I must add. Let's raise it up so it gets rid of the lake around it. This isn't supposed to be a caldera. I feel like the smoothing is cutting into it again. Now the reason it's cutting into this one is because of the fact that there's mountains on one side of it. And if the edges of the height map are too uneven, it will make seams form like that. So this one isn't really fit for blending in either. We could try Isarog, which is a Philippines volcano. Also probably not pronouncing that correct. Oh man, this is... it's blending in quite nicely, but it's far too steep. Let's lower its height a bit. I reckon I could reduce the smoothing a bit, because it does look like it's cutting into the volcano a little bit. There we go, that looks a bit nicer. I don't see any seams yet. Let's go and take a closer look at this volcano by loading in the terrain a bit more. Yeah, I think that looks quite good. I don't see any seams. Let's peer into the crater. You can see the flashing shadow bug because I don't have scatter on this instance of Kerbal. Yeah, I think we'll stick with this one here. Now, a fun fact with the Isarog volcano on Kerbal Space Program is there's a mod, the Calbalo system mod, or Cacalbalo system, I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. One of the planets on there actually uses this volcano. It's got this volcano on it. You can see some of my other volcanoes now. Those ones over there are blatantly not part of Kerbin. And the reason I haven't bothered blending those in is because those are supposed to be real volcanoes which I've placed in the game. So I'm trying to make them look like what they look like in real life, those ones over there. Oh no, I gave it the wrong name. That doesn't matter, I'll just have to leave it. Let's continue on. Let me just look at my Kerbal Plate Tectonics map. So yeah, the volcanoes are just going to follow the land here. So, you know, there's a lot of lakes here. Maybe this is going to be more of like a caldera volcano here. Let's look for caldera. There's a lot of calderas. Maybe the Hargy volcano. $27. Add a bit of smoothing, but smoothing doesn't generally work too well for calderas. Make it wider. Calderas are quite big, so we have to make it quite a big height map. Increase the height a little bit, but not too much because calderas are relatively flat. Oh no, I gave it the wrong name again. I do not see a volcano. Yeah, I cannot see a volcano. Let me reduce the radius, maybe. As I can tell, I can see the terrain is changing, but I can't really see a volcano yet. Right, now I can see a volcano. Let's increase the size of it somewhat, so that it's a more easy to see volcano. Too big now. Far too big. I can see some seams, lower the height a little bit. And I think this one needs a bit more smoothing. I can see a seam on the edge, which is just behind this window here. Right, that looks a bit better. Now let's go over and take a closer look to load in the terrain at full resolution and make sure that there are no issues. Right, do I see any seams? I don't think I can see a seam unless that's it, but I think that's just the edge of the caldera. Yeah, that's the edge of the caldera there. So yeah, a caldera volcano. I think that flat bit there is supposed to be a crater lake. But you do occasionally need to add a volcano that people at first glance wouldn't really think it's a volcano. Because if you look at any real volcanic arc, you're going to have a few that are stratovolcanoes, which are the ones that are like the definitive volcano. Those are the ones. The biggest volcano I can make there's quite a few big volcanoes, but there's a bit of a limit in size in that the terrain on the sides starts getting very stepped. If I go into the ocean over here where I've placed some earth volcanoes, which I haven't blended in, you can see there's a very big one here. This one is the Toba super volcano, and this is very big. The caldera is over 100 kilometers wide, so that one's fairly big. If we move over here, we have the island of Hawaii, which is even bigger. In fact, the largest volcano on Earth is on this island. But the only thing with this island here is it's made up of 5 volcanoes, and they're all shield volcanoes, so from the side they're not really like a conical peak, they're just like a very gentle slope going to the top. But those are sort of the biggest ones I have done. I did once add the entire island of Iceland. However, that was kind of too big and it didn't really fit in any of the oceans. I also did do a full-scale replica of Olympus Mons, but the terrain was stepped quite bad, and you could really see the steps in the terrain because the resolution of the height map wasn't high enough. Right, let's go over here again and place another volcano. Let's name it Kerbin Volcano 28. And I'm going to place that here. Let's do Hazan Dagi. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. It's a Turkish volcano. Increase the width of it and increase the height. Now this one is actually 2 volcanoes, I think, joined together, so it might not look good. I think that's turned out alright. Might be able to make it a bit taller, potentially. Let's make it a bit taller. There we go. Let's go over and have a look. It doesn't look too bad from a distance, despite it being a twin volcano with 2 of them. Sometimes these twin volcanoes can look a bit funny when you add smoothing to them. When you add smoothing to some of these twin volcanoes, it makes them look a bit funny sometimes, but that one doesn't look too bad. There is a bit of a seam there, but that's on the height map. I can do nothing about that one. And honestly, it's not that bad. I can pretty easily ignore that seam. So I would say this one's good. What volcano next? It'll be around there somewhere. So I'm looking at my plate tectonics map again on Kerbin. the next volcano, looking at that, might actually be in this ocean bit here, potentially. So that might end up being an island. Come on. When you zoom out this far, it gets quite hard to click on these arrows. Let's see. Which volcano? I don't think I've done that one yet. I don't know. It's been a while since I've done volcanoes on Kerbal. Moria volcano. I recognise the name. I'm just gonna quickly look at Google Maps to see what that one looks like. That one's a very wide volcano. It might not look good without a colour map, that one. You could do Sabre Island and put it in this bit here. I just noticed there's another height map I've placed. I'm gonna have to delete it. It's an older height map of Hawaii I placed, which isn't as good. The reason why I have a second height map of Hawaii is because I've got one lot of height maps which are the individual islands, and I've got another height map which is all of the islands, and I use the one with all of the islands as a template to show me where to place the individual islands which are higher resolution. So I'm going to place this one in the ocean. This one's going to be an island volcano. It's not going to be that big. Kerbin Volcano 29, I think. I think we can make it a bit bigger than that, maybe that big and about that tall. So it's going to be a bit bigger than the real version of this volcano. Let's also put it at the right height. Islands generally need to be around -10, so there's a little bit going under the water, but not too much. And we also need Cull Black turned on to remove the flat plateau that you get under the water. Let's go and take a closer look at this volcano. Let's not crash into it. There's a few errors around the edge of the height map, but I can't help though. Okay, there's a hole in it. This bug that makes the hole, I can't complain too much because that's the same bug that I use to make the tunnels for the trains. So... but it can be a bit annoying when you're placing volcanoes. So all that requires is me moving it slightly. we go. That should fix the hole in the top of it. There we go. An island volcano based on the Sabre Island, which actually there's not many people know this, but I think there's actually 2 volcanoes of that name. There's 2 volcanoes in Sabre, but one of them's really not very well known. Now, I did accidentally touch the microphone wire, so I hope you can still hear me. Let me have a look. I hope that didn't make too loud of a sound. I accidentally knocked the microphone wire. What volcano do I want to look at? Yeah, the other Sabre volcano. I'm pretty sure there is another one. Yeah, there's 2. Yeah, not many people know this, but there's 2 volcanoes called Sabre Island. There's the more famous one, which has the shortest commercially used runway in the world for passenger planes. And there's a second one which is not as well known, which is made up of what looks to be 2 or 3 tuff cones with a sandbar going between them. Part of the larger Jebel Zubair volcano, which I have almost certainly not pronounced right. Right, so I'm going to need to remove this height map, which is in my way here. You can probably see this sort of weird squiggly lines and hole in this land here. That's where I placed a not as good height map as a test. Now I need to try and find it. Now if I was naming this appropriately, it should just be called Hawaii. Let me look. Yep, that's the one. Delete. Actually, that's not going to work. Every time I delete height maps on here, they always come back. So I'm gonna have to come back when I reload this save, and I'm gonna have to come back and move it, basically, when I reload the save. But it'll be fine for now. Let's place in another volcano. Let's see. Cinnabon. That one's a fairly symmetrical volcano from what I remember, with a lava dome on the top of it. Not sure if a lava dome would be visible. Yeah, let's try Cinnabon for this one. Though the lakes here make me want to do another caldera. Kerbin Volcano 30. Let's not name it 3930. Right. Add some height as well, which I forgot to add. Maybe make the height map a bit narrower and a bit taller. There we go. Let's make it a little bit narrower and a bit taller again. The lakes make me want to do a caldera again, though. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do another caldera. How about if I did Crater Lake? That's quite a well-known caldera. If I can even find it. There it is. It does mean I'm going to have to add some water. And make it a lot wider. Now, adding lakes, the water is a bit of a different colour, unfortunately, but it doesn't really matter. Right, I'm looking at Wizard Island. I definitely need to make it a bit steeper. But it looks quite good. I don't see any seams. And I see a caldera. That's the cheat menu. And a very loud screenshot. Accidental screenshot, I must add. Right, I need to increase the height a little bit. Need to look at Wizard Island there. Maybe make it a little bit steeper again. Try about there. Do a quick look over it, and then I'll have to add a lake in the middle. Yes, screenshots, accidental screenshots are quite easy. I would say that is just the right steepness for the cinder cone, which is Wizard Island. Let's add a lake to this, as it's not really much of a crater lake if it doesn't have a lake. So we're gonna need to spawn a new group. I'm just gonna name it A Crater Lake. Water. Now, water's always a bit of a pain to place in Kerbal. And make it a lot bigger. And and keep going with the size. Yeah, that's the thing that makes it a bit annoying to place water. The edge of it, because the water is perfectly flat that I place, the edge of it's going over the edge. And there's not really much I can do about that. I could have used the height map that includes the bottom of Crater Lake. Unless I like do it over here and flatten it and then try and do this. Oh, I know what's causing that. That's the smoothing. The smoothing is lowering the edge down. I need to lower the smoothing if I want the water to work correct. Let's lower the smoothing. And now it's just got really bad seams. Let's increase the smoothing till those seams are just before the edge of the crater, which is about there. And then I'll lower that down so that the seams are not as noticeable. See, the crater lake already looks better. It already looks better, and I haven't adjusted the lake level. Right, let's adjust the lake so that the lake is level. There we go. That is a caldera with a lake, which is based on the Crater Lake height map. Yeah, I'm quite happy with how that one turned out. The seams are not too bad, and it's got a crater lake. Let's place the next one. This will be Kerbin Volcano 21. $31, I mean, not 21. And let's place it there. We're almost reaching the end of this land, where I will then go somewhere else and place more. What volcano next? What volcano did I try placing there before? Let's go with the Jeed Pangrango complex, which I'm almost certainly pronouncing wrong. Let's increase the height a bit. increase the height a bit more. That's better. Don't see any seams yet. Let's have a closer look. That looks quite good, I would say. It's another twin volcano complex with two volcanoes. Let me place the plane down somewhere flat. And place in another volcano. So, let's see. What volcano shall I add here? Shall I do a shield volcano, maybe? I'm thinking maybe I could do a shield volcano. I don't do shield volcanoes often enough. Karfala is a shield volcano. Karkar is a stratovolcano, but Karfala is a shield. Let's do a shield. The thing is, Karfala is an island, so it might not be very easy to blend in with the terrain. Now, the general rule with doing shield volcanoes is you have to make the height map a lot bigger, because shield volcanoes tend to not be particularly tall, but they tend to be very wide. Now, that being said, some shield volcanoes get very large, such as the ones on Hawaii or Olympus Mons, which are several kilometers high. Now this one actually consists of two shield volcanoes stuck together, so hopefully it doesn't smooth the edges of them out in a weird way. Shield volcanoes never look as good as the stratovolcanoes when you place them, but I think it's important to represent shield volcanoes as well as stratovolcanoes. So yeah, there's the shield volcano. Might not look as good as a shield might not look as good as a stratovolcano to most people that see this, but I think it's just as important to have a few shields represented as well as the stratovolcanoes. You can see all these little bumps on the top are cinder cones from different eruptions that have happened. You can't really see the seam too bad. Let's do the next volcano. Let's see. What volcano shall I do now? Maybe try the Luotobi volcano. The thing is, that one's a twin volcano complex, so it might smooth them out in a bit of a weird way. That doesn't look good. Zero, 3, 3. Have to give them unique numbers, otherwise they'll overwrite each other. So let's try Luotobi and hope. Okay, that looks horrendous. That's looking horrendous because I've got the height map way too high off of sea level. That doesn't look as bad anymore. Let's increase the height of it. There we go. Let's use Vessel Mover to fly over to it. I might have made that too steep, actually. Yeah, that is far too steep. We're entering Aldoinio Lengai Spattercone territory here with steepness. That is far too steep. Let me make that not as steep. That's a lot better. Doesn't look too bad for a twin volcano complex. As I said, sometimes height maps with two volcanoes on kind of like smooth them out unevenly and you get weird artifacts that make the volcanoes look like they're tilted. Now, where I've placed the plane here, if this was a real Luotobi volcano, it would be an extremely deadly place to land right there, right now, as I believe there is currently a lava dome forming there with occasional explosions happening. So it's not really the ideal place to land there if it was real life. Let's do the next volcano, which is Kerbin Volcano 34. And then maybe we'll look through some of the other volcanoes I've placed. Let's call this Kerbin Volcano 34. What volcano shall we do? It's probably gonna be second to last one on this particular volcanic arc. Panish is a shield volcano. We want a stratovolcano, really. What does the Gamchan volcano look like? That one. That one's a complex volcano. I'm not sure that one's gonna look particularly good. I can try it. As in, technically, Luotobi is a complex volcano too. But this one's more of a complex volcano, as it's got, like, probably, like, if I go on Google Maps, I can count many different volcanoes in this complex. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10. There's a lot of volcanoes in this complex. Yeah, this is the thing with complex volcanoes. They're not really a singular peak. Yeah, it doesn't really look very good in my mind. I can live with it though, as there's no seams. Okay, there's a seam there. You can see one of the many craters there. Oh yeah, you can really see the seams there. I think I could make that one a bit taller. Let me just make this one a bit taller. Make it a bit taller and adjust things so that the seam isn't as noticeable. Might have to add a bit more smoothing, which unfortunately smoothing, or maybe even less smoothing might help as well. Yeah, complex volcanoes don't really do very well with the smoothing. We're gonna have to change to a different volcano. Lamongan, maybe? I'm just gonna check that one on Google Maps to make sure I'm thinking of the correct volcano. Yep, that is the one I am thinking of. A nice tall strato. Well, it's not that tall compared with the ones next to it, but it's a stratovolcano. Right, it's a bit steep. There we go. Now if we go closer to this one, are the seams as visible? I can see a little bit of a seam there, but it's nothing too noticeable. I would say that one fits in quite well. Here's its crater. I think I'm gonna do one more volcano on this volcanic arc, and then maybe I'll move to another volcanic arc, or maybe I'll just show us around the field of Earth volcanoes, because although these height maps I'm using are based on Earth volcanoes, these are supposed to look like they're part of the Kerbal planet. They're supposed to look like that they were already there, in a way. They're supposed to look like they're part of Kerbin. The other volcanoes over there, which are not visible anymore, are supposed to look like Earth volcanoes, which I have stitched onto Kerbin as like the size comparison between them. Kerbin Volcano 35. Let's see what volcano to do now then. Maybe two side. Once again, I'm almost certainly pronouncing that wrong. Now let's... Okay, we do not want that. We don't want it that high. We just want it a bit high. This volcano is an interesting volcano, as it's got a couple of calderas and a stratovolcano. Now, as these are not supposed to be the real life counterparts, I might add a crater lake to one of the calderas, because the real one, as in the real one, used to have a crater lake. Okay, I just noticed a problem with this. That caldera on the height map is very close to the edge, and any smoothing is gonna... Actually, it's already got a crater lake. The seams are not too visible. I don't even need to add a crater lake. The game's given it a crater lake because it goes below sea level. Let's take a closer look, make sure there's not too many seams. I don't see any seams. There we go. There's the stratovolcano, the two-side stratovolcano. And here are the multiple overlapping calderas. Yeah, I was going to give this caldera a crater lake, but the game's given it a crater lake anyway, so I don't have to add one. It just helps differentiate it a bit from the real life version of the volcano. Now, unfortunately, I have just noticed this seam sticking out like a sore thumb here. So, I'm going to have to change things a bit. Okay, that's too low. Maybe about there. Does that help? Not really. I can still see the seam. See, unfortunately, if I add more smoothing to help reduce the seam, it's gonna flatten out this caldera on the edge. The caldera on the edge is still there, though, with a bit more smoothing. Yeah, the seam isn't as noticeable anymore. The caldera's still there, but it's a bit smoothed out now. Anyway, I've placed volcanoes all the way along this strip of land now. So that is this volcanic arc done. Now, before I end the stream, I'm going to just have a look around some of my earth volcanoes, which I have stitched onto Kerbin, which are these ones. If the game can take it, there we go. I've got a lot of earth volcanoes, which I have stitched onto the Kerbin. And I haven't really shown these off on this channel yet, so I think it's going to be worth showing some of these earth volcanoes off. Now, these volcanoes, as they're earth volcanoes, I can give these ones colour maps. I kind of wish I could use colour maps on the Kerbin volcanoes, but unfortunately, there's a bug with the smoothing of colour maps, which makes it so that it only smooths it on two sides, which makes it not look very good when you add a colour map. So here is one of the many volcanoes I have placed. I can't remember which one this one is. I know it's one in Indonesia. I'm quickly going to check it. I'm looking at it right now. Mount Willis. Then over here is the Popa volcano, which is a volcano in Myanmar. Just going AFK briefly. Right, I am back again. So this is the Mount Popa volcano, which is a volcano in Myanmar, or Burma. Over here is the very large Toba supervolcano, which is a very large caldera. I notice there's a few errors on the height map around the island. Over here we have the Uinkaret volcano, which is next to the Grand Canyon. This one is a volcanic field, so it doesn't really look like a volcano, but there are cinder cones there. Going to this one here, we have the Messiah volcano, or Messiah, I don't know how you pronounce it. You can see it's kind of multiple overlapping calderas. Then over here we have the Langila volcano. Over here we have one that I actually just used as a height map. This one is the Lamongan volcano. Over here we have the Kelud volcano, which has a lava dome in the center here. Then over here, going this way, we have another volcano. This one's another one in Indonesia. Let me just have a look to see which one that one is. That is the Welirang Arjuna complex. Almost certainly pronouncing that wrong. And it also includes the Mount Penanggun volcano. Very hard to pronounce that one, but not the hardest volcano to pronounce. Then over here we have the Ilopango caldera and the Waranamus volcano. I don't know how you pronounce it. And what's interesting about this volcano is it's in the Sahara Desert. And because the desert sand is very bright in colour, it makes the black areas from the pyroclastic flows look very dark. And even more interesting is if you look, you can see a trail where the wind blew the ash away from the volcano, which made it slightly darker on one side. Then we have this one here, which is the Canlaon volcano. Then over here we have the Two-Side volcano with the caldera there, which I can't remember the name of. Over here we have the IN complex, I think it's called. And it's a caldera complex volcano with many stratovolcanoes going around the edge. I do have a Yellowstone volcano, but I haven't placed it yet. I can quickly place it now if you want me to. Let me go and place in Yellowstone, as I haven't placed that one in yet. Control K. Now the ones that are not supposed to be part of Kerbin, I just put A next to it. A Yellowstone. So they appear at the top of the list. Let's move it away from the other volcanoes. It's quite a large one. Lower it down a bit. Now I'm just going to go and look at the color map for it. Which is gonna take a bit of time to find, I think. Where I'm gonna have to go into my Kerbal directory a minute. Just looking for the color map. Yeah, it won't have any of the features visible, like the geysers, or geysers as Americans call them. It won't have any of those visible. It'll just be mountains with the lake in the middle. Let's have a look. Yellowstone color. Then I go on to Google Maps and measure the height map, the color map I mean, that I have versus the height map. Let's have a look. So I just look at my color map. You can't see what I'm looking at here, by the way. And I measure roughly how wide the color map is, because the color map is exactly the same width as the height map, basically. And the other edge of the color map is around there. So the height map, total width, if it's gonna let me drag the... It doesn't let you do that anymore. That's annoying. The height map's about 130 kilometers wide. So that's a 65-kilometer radius. So we increase the radius to be 65 kilometers. You can see this is actually a very big height map. Then we move it further away from the volcanoes I've already placed. And now I have to try and figure out where the highest peak is. Let's just check that. That's not within the height map, that one. Highest peak in Yellowstone National Park. I'm just gonna guess at how high that is so that I can just get it placed quicker, and then I'll correct it later. So now we set it, the height map to Yellowstone, and set the colour map to Yellowstone, and apply and save. Do I need coal black? No, I don't. There it is. Let's go and load it in so it's at its highest resolution. There's the Yellowstone volcano. As you can see, it's not really got any of the famous features visible on it, but you can see Yellowstone Lake there, and Pitchstone Plateau here, which is this sort of lighter coloured area. So yeah, this is the Yellowstone volcano. I think around over here somewhere you might be able to see the edge of one of Yellowstone's calderas, potentially. Not quite sure where it would translate to. Let me briefly look at the real one. Where's that caldera that's visible? There it is. It's down here. Yeah, this sort of slight ridge visible here is the edge of one of Yellowstone's calderas. You can even vaguely see a road there. Just slightly. So yeah, that's the Yellowstone volcano. Continuing on through my volcanoes that I've got here, I have the Ibu or Ibu volcano here, a volcano in Indonesia. This one over here doesn't have a colour map. This one is the Sufan volcano in Turkey. Then over here we have what looks to be a volcano in Bolivia or Chile, which I can't remember the name of. There's a lot in both of those countries. It's in the Atacama Desert. It doesn't have a name on Google Maps. It's in Chile, I think. Bolivia, I was wrong. It's just south of that massive salt flat, this one. Then over here we have the Basman volcano in Iran. And over here we have the Isarog volcano in the Philippines. Doesn't have a colour map, that one. This one here is one in Japan. I'll quickly go and look at it because I know which one it is, but I can't remember the name. Mount Iwate. It's probably not pronounced. It's probably like Iwati or something. I don't know how to pronounce that. Then over here we have what I think is the Cerro Aracar volcano. I'm just double checking. Yes, that is. Then over here we have one of the tall volcanoes in Mexico with a very long and hard to pronounce name. It begins with a C. It's something like Citlaltépetl, and I know it's also got another name. Pico de Orizaba is its other name. Then over here we have another volcano in Chile or Bolivia. Then over here we have the Zuquala volcano, which is in Kenya or Ethiopia. Just gonna double check that. It is in Ethiopia. Over here we have the Pacaya volcano in Guatemala. Here is the Nabro volcano in Ethiopia. No, is it Ethiopia? I'm just gonna double check that again. I'm doubting myself. It's on the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia, this one. The border goes across the middle of the height map. Then over here we have the Jeed Pangrango complex, which consists of two volcanoes that have joined together. Then over here we have another very hard to pronounce one in Mexico, but I'm gonna go for it. I think it's called Iztaccíhuatl. I am probably very wrong with my pronunciation there. Here's another one for me to screw up the pronunciation for. Popocatépetl. I almost missed these ones over here, which include Mount Sinabung here, a volcano in Indonesia. Mount Elgon over here, which is a shield volcano in Kenya, I think. It might be on the border now I think about it. Yeah, it's on the border between Kenya and Uganda. Sort of looping back around a bit here. Here we have the Dakatawa volcano, which is supposed to have a crater lake, but I couldn't be bothered to fill it with water. Which also comes with the Bola volcano. Here we have the Hazandagi volcano in Turkey. Over here we have a volcano in Africa, which I can't remember the name of. I think it's called the Deriba caldera. Looks like I didn't really center the height map very well with the color map. Is it the Deriba caldera? I'm just gonna look it up. Yes, it is the Deriba caldera. Yeah, this sort of double line visible here is a sign I've not really centered the color map with the height map, because this dark area is supposed to be at the bottom, I think. Then over here we have the Villarrica volcano in Chile. Over here we have Mount Vesuvius, which is arguably the most famous volcano in the world, or infamous. And over here we have Karisimbi volcano next to Mount Bisoke, and I can't remember the name of that one. The tall one there is called Mikeno. Then over here we have Urta Ale or Urta Ali, I don't know how it's pronounced, including two of its neighbouring volcanoes. Over here we have Mount Tambora, which is another one of the more infamous volcanoes in the world. Going back over here, there's a lot of them here. Going back over here again, we have the Hargi volcano, which is supposed to have a crater lake, but I haven't included that because I couldn't be bothered to place it. Here's the Osorno or Osorno volcano. And this one is the Momotombo volcano. Unfortunately, you can't see the big cut in the side, the lava channel on the side of it. And we can see several volcanic islands like Tofua and Tenerife, La Palma, Hawaii. Too many volcanoes for me to name, but I'll just sort of fly by all of them. Here's the Galapagos Islands with Isla Isabella. This is Heard Island there, Herbert, and some of the volcanoes in Alaska. So you've actually been to those volcanoes as well. Then this big one here is Hawaii, which most people call Big Island. Then there's Alade, Siao, Ometepe, Ambe. I think that one's called Bagabag. Over here we have a couple of shield volcanoes, which I think this one's called Tenjorek volcano. And this one over here is called the Barrier. And we've got a couple of volcanoes here. This one here is a very large lava dome in Chile or Bolivia. Now these volcanoes here are some interesting ones. They're not very easy to see, but you can see they do stick up a bit. These are mud volcanoes. Some very large mud volcanoes in Azerbaijan. Then over here we have a volcano called Mount Moria in Indonesia. I think this one here is called Garov, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check that. Yes, it is the Garov Island volcano. Here we have Tristan da Cunha, which is one of the most isolated inhabited islands in the world. Then over here we have the La Soufriere volcano with its big lava dome. Over here is a volcano. I don't know what one that is though. I think that might be Nevis Peak maybe in the Caribbean. Let me just have a look. Yes, it is Nevis Peak, that one. This one is Mount Augustine in Alaska. These ones are blue because they're being overlapped by several colour maps of the ocean. Here is the Marion Island Shield Volcano. This one over here is Manum Island. Here is Kolombangara Island, which is also blue because it's being overlapped by a colour map. Over here we have Fogo Island. And over here we have a couple of others, like Gamconora and Chiliquez over here, and Imbabura over here, which I hope I'm pronouncing these right, and Iliboleng, I think that one's called, Luotobi, Mount Cameroon. A lot of volcanoes. The island of Montserrat here. The island of Maui. What other islands do I have? Some other Hawaiian islands there. The island with Mount Karfala on. Some other volcanic islands dotted around, such as Jan Mayen here, with the Beerenberg volcano. This volcano here is the very infamous Mount Pelée volcano, which I believe produced one of the deadliest eruptions in history. Then over here is probably another more famous one, the island of Oahu. And over here we have some other volcanoes, such as the Quill and Semi-Sopochnoi, I think that one's called. Very hard to pronounce. I don't know what that one is. Yeah, I know what that one is. That's a volcano in Papua New Guinea. This one here is the Ritter Island volcano, which collapsed into the ocean, leaving just a crescent-shaped island. And then over here we have the last two volcanoes, which is the islands of Kauai and Niihau, which are parts of Hawaii again. So yeah, I think that's all the volcanoes placed and all the volcanoes that I want to show off now, so I will probably end the stream here. So if you didn't enjoy this live stream, remember to dislike and unsubscribe, and maybe you won't watch the next video or live stream.